white privilege album. Say it twice, the white privilege album. Author A.J.
Welcome to Veronica Live, and wow, we have in the house A.J. Rice, and he's got his brand new book. It's called The White Privilege Album, and you're hearing the song from his book. Welcome back, A.J., to Veronica Live.
BK, it's great to be here. It's always fun.
Well, let's tell everybody about you, because I am a fan. You are doing huge things in this world. You call yourself the GOAT, and I think you are the GOAT. You are like one of the number one conservative warriors, slaying dragons. I'm number two right behind you, and I know Drew Allen works for you. He's up there too, and you are the god of, PR. You run Publius PR, which is a fantastic company, and you've had all these movers and shakers that you've pushed out their books, from Judge Jeanine, Donald Trump Jr., Monica Crowley. The list is so long. Just the whole world, you've published their books, and not to mention you worked for Laura Ingraham, who is conservative. She's also another conservative dragon slayer out there, but oh my gosh. And then this is your second book, and it's called The White Privilege Album, and it is so fun because I loved your first book, The Woking Dead, which also was a bestseller. Yeah. So welcome to Veronica Live. Before we start.
Well, no, I appreciate that. Thanks for the intro. Yeah, no, look, I'll embrace the GOAT moniker. I didn't. It was given to me last time around over the. When The Woking Dead came out, I did hundreds of interviews and I had book reviews and things, and it was getting tossed around in some publications. So I basically absconded with it, and so far I'm living up to the name for sure. Look, when it comes to conservative PR, especially ones based in Swamp Central here in Washington D.C., there's not a lot of characters left that right wingers can trust. There's not.
No.
Some of them some of these people I've had to put a toe tag on, but a lot of them, if I'm not doing barter deals with them now, and they've pretty much put up the white flag and submitted, there's a lot of sort of right of center firms in D.C. that when Trump showed up, when the OG from the Golden Escalator showed up, they basically threw in with the Never Trumper Brigade. I mean, they started doing books by all the little rats that would go into the Trump administration, stay there for 6 months, write their book, and then leave and get it published. So they're out there. I mean, they are out there. But yeah, I mean, you gave a little sample of some of my clients. Very few PR firms can say that they are, working with the Trump organization, with Donald Trump's super PAC, with Donald Trump's publishing house, Donald Trump Jr.'s books. Donald Trump Jr. owns a publishing house. Some of these big coffee table books that Trump has been putting out, it's owned with a good friend of mine, Sergio Gore. We're their publicists. So, Charlie Kirk's book, Judge Janine's book, Carrie Lake, MTG, Peter Navarro, we have done these books. And then obviously, we work with Trump's lawyer, Christina Bobb. And for RFK Jr., we've done his books. We work with his publishing house. And we work with his super PAC, AV24. So when I saw Trump and RFK Jr. on the stage together, it's like seeing, Captain America and Iron Man.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I like to think of myself as I'm the organizer, the ringleader of the MAGA cinematic universe.
Well, you are, and then you're a brilliant writer to boot. So I want to get into the book, but I wanted to, because one of the chapters is about Vince Everett Ellison that tells his story. So you write this book because everybody right now, it's bad to be white. So you tell all these stories about how it's not bad to be white. White people have been superheroes in the plight of ... African Americans too. But this Vince Everett Ellison actually wrote the foreword to your book. So talk about that relationship. And he's a black man that has a story as well, and he's a conservative.
Sure. No, he's like Black Superman. I mean, he is he's like a mentor. He's also a client. He wrote the foreword. He's a religious guy. He got, preacher, pastor in his DNA from the South. And I mean, he helped show me how some of this interconnectivity of what goes on in the black community, how some of that is sort of connected to the fact that, in a lot of instances, our biggest problems with cultural Marxism, our biggest problems with the Democrat Party is not any type of sort of minority group, or whether it's blacks or Hispanics or whatever it is. Most of our problems come from liberal whites. And it's the liberal whites that get into some of these communities. They I call them the pumpkin spice mafia. I mean, these are the whitest people. I mean, these are the whitest people in America, and they live in the whitest neighborhoods in America. And look, I think that is why. Let me break it down like this. The Democrat Party, Kamala Harris, getting the endorsement from Taylor Swift, who's about as gets under your skin the same way Kamala does. I mean, people want to try to wonder, what was Kamala's game plan to debate Trump, or her game plan was to get under Trump's skin, which she's good at, which is why she couldn't find a husband until she was 50 years old. So when it comes to Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift can't find a husband either. So unmarried, white, annoying cat ladies. Kamala Harris has the unmarried, annoying cat lady wrapped. She has that vote wrapped up. She has it wrapped up. The big problem she has, Kamala Harris from India, Kamala Harris from Canada, Kamala Harris from Jamaica. Her biggest problem is with black men. It's with black married couples. They don't trust her. But who do they trust? They trust the OG from the Golden Escalator. Believe me, which has got them scared to death, because the African-American vote is moving in Trump's direction. And that brings me to the White Privilege album. Look, I'm having fun with the book title, just like I did with The Woking Dead. And the subtitle of this book is Bringing Racial Harmony to Very Fine People on Both Sides. But when you hear the left talk about white privilege, let me tell you what they're actually doing. And I'm abducting the term back and having some fun with it. When you hear the term white privilege, and African Americans know what I'm about to say, okay? I'm from Philadelphia. I'm sure the audience can hear that. I grew up on the playground of Philadelphia, playing ball, playing street ball. I wanted to be Allen Iverson when I grew up, okay? I didn't want to be Ronald Reagan, all right? So hopefully I end up somewhere in between. And I'm telling you this, when you hear the leftists talking about white privilege and the constructs of white privilege, right, what they're actually talking about is Western civilization. Because when they say white privilege, they're talking about Western civilization. Because Western civilization, which is the most successful civilization on planet Earth's history, which is basically Greco-Roman, Judeo-Christian philosophies that built Western civilization. In order for the cultural Marxists to overthrow this country, Western civilization has to go. So it has to get labeled a construct of white privilege. If you take a step down from that, the second thing that they're talking about is the middle class. The middle class has to go. Look, any place Marxism has thrived, they never had a middle class. They never had a middle class. It was always some royal family or some dictator, and then the serfs, the peasants, right? The breadline people standing in line waiting for their meal from the government. So the left knows, in order for the cultural Marxists to overthrow, different governments and to sort of take over our culture, Western civilization and the middle class have to go. And the third thing that is a construct of white privilege, according to the left, is the nuclear family. These three things, and we know they're after them. We know they hate it. They think it's a construct of white privilege and racism. And Black Lives Matter told us it was. It was on their website. So, but here's the thing about all of this. Western civilization, the middle class, and the nuclear family doesn't have a color. You can come here and you can participate in these things. Because never forget this, ladies and gentlemen. We are not a multicultural country. We're a multi-ethnic country. We have one culture, Western culture. The left knows this, okay? Not all cultures are created equal, which is why some cultures go away. And I, have some fun.
Okay, well, the book is fantastic.
If they can get rid of those three things.
Well, why do you think?
Right.
I mean, it's the power grab, because I've been reflecting on it, because this election cycle, it's been like, we've never experienced anything like this. I actually, in the military as a lieutenant, was sent to a third world country and lived there for 2 years. I've experienced rich and poor, and their poor was horrific. And I don't want to live like this. And then you see what's going on with Ohio, of course the cat jokes, but the 20,000 that were just plunked into this sleepy 40,000 person town, and the struggles, and then now they're trying to suppress what's going on in this town. Who wants to live in a third world country? But I guess it comes down to power, does it not, AJ?
Sure. I mean, sure. Look, the left imported 20,000 Haitians, could care less about our culture, and airdropped them into working class Ohio. And, they expect these people not to freak out. I mean, that's basically carving up a couple neighborhoods in Haiti and dump them in the middle of the heartland. I mean, and they're there, they're eating pets, and they're eating pond water they're eating
and they're
waterfowl.
having
and
daily car accidents, even hitting buildings, killing people. It's
Sure.
just horrible. I feel for these people, and these people aren't
But, I mean,
loaded.
it's a great example of what I'm talking about. So, I mean, it's a multi-pronged attack on the West, on Western civilization, and on our culture that the left tries to do. This is why they try to import people, and not just Haitians. God bless them. I mean, Haiti. I wrote about it in The Walking Dead. When Trump said we don't want to take any of these people from these S-hole countries. Well, the goal, which was hilarious, by the way. He couldn't have been more spot on. But the goal of the left and the goal of the Democrat Party is to import everyone from all the S-hole countries.
Yeah.
So that they can turn this place into an S-hole.
Well,
because the goal is,
awful.
for them to have power, they need a starving peasant class.
Well, I don't want to live like this, and we have to fight back. And I know your book's doing that.
Absolutely. 100%. And look, that's why when Hispanics and Americans move up into the middle class, it scares them. It scares them because, you start owning private property, you start making some money, and I believe happy people are more inclined to have children. You start to have a nuclear family. Next thing you know, you're looking at the Democrat Party, which are a bunch of, race hustling, cultural Marxists that are just obsessed with controlling your behavior, your food, your language, your entertainment. And you say to yourself, I have nothing, I want no part of this from these people.
Well, you break down the book. You've got the 12 months of privilege, and I just want to, kind of, hit on a couple of the chapters because they were very educational. And for example, did white people invent Ebonics? And I didn't know the story about that. So that's the thing. I don't know. That chapter was very moving.
Look, I mean, that you got to thank Thomas Sowell for some. I mean, when you study certain types of language that does get used, any type of slang language, there is language that gets passed along. I mean, look, slavery was in the South. The English being spoken in Boston sounded very different than the English being spoken in Birmingham, Alabama. So, if you're talking about enslaved people that English wasn't their first language, you're talking about, a couple hundred years of different types of broken English being passed along from master to slave, and then from to slave, and then from slave to free person, and from free person to free person. You eventually come down the line to a different type of sound. And that's not necessarily unique to race. I mean, the Scottish and the Irish, their English sounds very different than the Welsh or the, or people that are like high society in London. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, this is what Philadelphia sounds like, right?
Well,
I mean,
the chapters are so good. The one that actually was sad to me was the it's the April privilege, and it was Colin Kaepernick runs over his white parents, and that one that one hurt my heart, AJ.
Sure.
Because his
look,
parents wanted him to fix his hair, and he's biracial, and then he's like, oh, they don't like black people.
Right. Well, it's funny. I do a comparison of the Kaepernick family and the Aaron Judge family.
He was adopted too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And they're both biracial. One is a washed-up football player. One is quite possibly the face of Major League Baseball, plays for the New York Yankees. He's definitely the face of the American League, and one of the top 5 most recognizable baseball players we have right now. And both of them were adopted by white parents. And, it's an amazing thing the way that they have gone about their careers, treated their adopted white parents in very different ways. And it doesn't get a lot, it doesn't get talked about how, Kaepernick basically has disowned his adopted family.
It's so sad.
But
as
Aaron
a parent,
Judge, yeah, go ahead.
Well, as a parent, it rips your heart out because,
Sure.
when God gives you a child, it doesn't matter if you've birthed it or they've handed you this adopted child. It's your child. And so that chapter just was so rough.
Sure. But, you have to tell these stories. You have to, I think this section's called All Hail Aaron Judge's Parents. All hail is what the Yankees broadcasters say when he's up to the plate because his name's Judge, so they're using a courtroom metaphor. But his parents, I think they're public school teachers in Colorado. They did a phenomenal job because this is a solid human being, and this is somebody that does a lot of charities, does charities with other adopted, adoption
that was very
charities.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, raises money, and it's just it's an amazing thing. You can have similar situations, and if the cultural Marxists get a hold of you, if the Woking Dead gets a hold of you, you could turn out very differently. And there couldn't be a starker contrast between those two athletes. And I felt it important to tell both of those stories, not just the negative Kaepernick stuff, which we can kind of surmise because Kaepernick's been running around acting like a jabroni here for a couple of years, right? But Judge, people need to know the Aaron Judge story. So I wanted to include. And look, the book is not just me wise ass and making fun of the left.
The stories are beautiful though, and it's funny because you look at 12 months and it's the gift that keeps on giving. These stories, just because the other one I wanted to talk about was Juneteenth. You're welcome, sincerely, the Grand Old Party, because I remember when that holiday popped up, I was like, what? I don't even remember anybody talking about it, and I'm somebody that reads news 24/7, and next thing you know, you have a holiday. And so I wanted you to talk about that, why you wrote that chapter.
Sure. Well, look, did you see who gave the book? So Abraham Lincoln gave me
I was going to close with that because your comments from, these famous old people are quite funny.
Well, look, with The Walking Dead, I asked some of my famous friends to give me blurbs, right? So with this one, I said, you know what? I'm not going to ask my famous clients about it. So, Ingrid, Texas, or whatever, they all give me blurbs. They give me blurbs the first time. So this time around, I'm going to ask Abraham Lincoln and Joseph Stalin and Christopher Columbus and Ben Franklin and Santa Claus.
My favorite.
Yeah.
And AI,
exactly.
Yes.
And look, when it comes to Juneteenth, this is I don't see any problem with Juneteenth being a celebration, but they're pretending, they're talking about it. I guess it appears that we're now recognizing it, even though there was a famous book in the past, and it's been talked about in jazz music and black culture for a long time. But a white man risked everything. Lots of white people risked everything. President of the United States lost his life because of Juneteenth.
Yeah.
Shot in the head by a Democrat actor. So look, it's the full story's not being told. So when the greatest African American who ever lived, George Floyd, died, we decided to do some things because of our white guilt. This was one of them. But if you're gonna celebrate it and you're gonna tell the story, you should at least tell the story that the Southern Democrats were the reason the Civil War happened, and the Republican Party is who not only ended slavery but ended the war. And you should tell the full story. You should tell the full story. You want to talk about George Washington? You should tell the full story. He freed all the slaves on his deathbed. Tell the story, okay? No one's story. Look, there's one thing you could say about mankind, is that in most of its iterations, it kind of stinks.
Yeah.
Mankind does not have a squeaky record on human rights. So you can do what I call presentism, which is judge people in the past based on current mores and standards. Oh, I don't like I don't like George Washington. I don't like Thomas Jefferson because they didn't have any gay friends. No, that's not how you judge. That's not how you judge historical figures. You have to take them based on the zeitgeist of the time. So, and you have to have a maturity level to be able to do that. So if you want to run around pulling down statues, right, and creating holidays, George Floyd Day, Juneteenth Day, and all these other things, you got to have a full context. And
we need the full George Floyd story, which what the cop did was atrocious. But the man, I go to New York all the time. You'll walk around and somebody has done a big mural on an entire building for this man.
That's right. And Nelson Mandela.
And George Washington is not a superhero, and I have Alan West on my show all the time, and he's angered that Confederate statues have been taken down and Army bases' names have been changed, because it's gone extreme. So is that kind of what was in your heart? Because the stories aren't out there. We never get the full story.
Absolutely.
AJ.
I mean, the book has for sure. I mean, the book shows racial harmony type stories, but it also shows, some of the excesses of cultural Marxists that used, the death of Floyd. Look, two things can be right at the same time. The cop can be a scumbag, and Floyd can also be, an unsavory person. Did he decide?
Yeah.
Does any one of them deserve to be in that situation? No freaking way.
Yeah.
But don't talk to me about him like he's,
No, he's been. It's like he is a superhero, honestly. Okay, I skipped over May.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask you about this Gavin Newsom and the skin color Marxists, because now he's I guess it was yesterday. He's made it so that if you loot, the only way you're going to get in trouble is if it's more than $50,000, and then he's walked it back with the reparations, and he's always courting the black people, and so I kind of laughed at that. Now you don't go to jail unless it's more than $50,000. Well, these people are looting like Gucci bags for $5,000, so nothing's changed. Sure. So talk about that chapter, because
No, I mean, look, they're not stealing. They're not stealing. Little Debbie treats and.
M&Ms.
No, they're going right for the Apple and the Louis stores.
Which I want one. Steal one for me.
But here's the thing about the reparations. I mean, he's walking back to reparations, which I might need an addendum to the book. But it's funny, while he's walking back reparations, New York City has decided. And what's funny is California and New York both fought on the side of the Union. Neither one of them had slaves in 1860, let alone today. But New York City has decided that that New York State, New York City, the city where escaped slaves were trying to get to from the Underground Railroad, that they're going to take money from people that never owned slaves, and they're going to give it to people that never were slaves.
I'm so bothered by this, because you work your ass off all the time, AJ. I work my ass off all the time. Nobody ever gives me 5 cents. And then, they're talking millions they want.
Well, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I mean, look, there's millions of people out there that are descended from people that fought to end slavery.
Yes.
Whether it was Wilberforce and the English and the British Navy that was stopping slave ships on the high seas, to Lincoln's Union Navy that was doing the same thing, and the people that wore navy blue uniforms in the Civil War, and Where's the ducats for those people? Where's the shekels for those people? I mean, look, there's the oldest institution in the history of mankind is slavery. Okay, like I said a little bit ago, mankind kind of sucks. So slavery's been with us since Moses coming out of Egypt. Okay, so they only want to focus on the most recent slavery, which is interesting considering that slavery still exists today in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, and in places like Darfur in the Sudan. They don't
China
get really
and the Uyghurs.
Yes, in China and organ harvesting and all kinds of fun stuff. So it's outrageous. It's outrageous. It's another sort of form of taking wealth from people, redistributing wealth, and that's really the goal. They will use any tactic they can. Reparations, one of them.
So another chapter I was intrigued by, because I'm Hispanic, but I choose to say I'm an American. It's a matter of time until Hispanics are white adjacent.
Oh my God. I love this term, by the way, white adjacent. I love it. And I use it a couple of times in the book where, it's funny. This big Harvard decision where a lot of Asian students.
I feel bad for them. Oh, gosh.
Made the case. Yeah, I mean, they basically set this affirmative action type, program about non-whites getting into elite universities, and Asians basically took advantage of it because they were freaking asses off.
Yes. And
they study for the MCATs, and they study for the LSATs, and they study, and they're whiz kids. All kinds of other people, Hispanics and Arab and Persian Americans, Turkish Americans, and they all of a sudden, the left freaks out, bumps the brakes. Wait a minute. For minorities, only for the right kind of minority, right? So here's the deal with the Hispanics and Asian people and why they're being called white adjacent. They're being called white adjacent because they're starting to move towards the Republican Party.
Yes.
Okay? So as they move towards the Republican Party, they're going to get all kinds of things. Well, Hispanics, they're not really minorities. They're Korean and Cambodian.
No,
people,
I actually
really
got. I was on it. I was invited. It was Frank Luntz. I was in one of these New York Times forums for 2 hours, and they ID'd me as a Hispanic. And two of the black women said that cause it was a video thing for 2 hours, and two of the black women said that I was white and that I was not Hispanic enough to walk in their shoes as black women, and I literally was like, excuse me. So I've lived it, AJ.
Well,
okay.
Look, but it just shows you see the whole world like a color-coded sushi menu. They're obsessed with identity. They can't get away from it. Everything is about private parts and skin color and this and that. I mean, they're obsessed with that. And like I told you in the beginning, we are a multi-ethnic country, but we are not a multicultural country. So, they try to do anything they can, grasp on anything they can to try to dissolve the bonds of Western civilization, whether it's pluralism, whether it's the individual, whether it's, the freedom of education, freedom to make your own money. They need to get their hands in there, okay? You have too much freedom. They're here to tell you what's best for you, right? So sure. I mean, they're all using the Crayola 64 box to try to figure out who has rights and who doesn't.
Which is so weird because, I grew up a military brat. I was in the military for 20 years, and it's such a melting pot where we all come together. Because if you're in a foxhole with somebody, we all bleed red, and I don't know why we're back to this, race thing again. I blame it on Obama personally, but I think it started there. Okay, my other chapter I wanted to chat with you about was Black Lives Matter loves Hamas. What a combo.
Well, look, if you read the introduction, the first line of the book in my introduction is I knew I had to write a book like this when I saw that Black Lives Matter was supporting Hamas when they attacked Israel on October 7th. Anniversary. Here's the one thing you need to remember, and we've been touching on it all throughout the interview. Totalitarians will team up with each other if their goal is the same. And, I mean, look, Hitler was in charge of the most racist regime in history, and yet he had no problem teaming up with an Asian country, Japan. And quite frankly, Germans didn't even think Italians were white people.
Right.
And teaming up with Italy. So these were the Axis powers in World War II. So they'll make exceptions. They will make exceptions. So if you've got this group of Marxists and this group of radical Hamas, and this guy jumped on stage and stabbed Salman Rushdie, and the Trans Mafia jumped on stage and it goes after Dave Chappelle, they will all get in the totalitarian rowboat together. They will swim together until eventually they will, when their enemy's gone, then they'll eat each other. So, I mean, look no further than, the Bolsheviks and the Jacobins in France and then in Russia. They all turned on each other. I mean, Robespierre beheaded the royal family and then got his own head chopped off by, people crazier than him. So I mean, look, the reality, libertarians will flock together as they need to in order to suck freedom and joy and the individual from the population at large. That is their goal. They will. When you see Black Lives Matter pulling down, Lincoln statues and Christopher Columbus statues, it's really no different than the Taliban firing those RPGs at those Buddhist statues.
Yeah.
If you can recall from 20
yes,
from
I
20
do
years
remember
ago.
that.
There's no difference. It's the same intifada. It's the same intifada, and it's an intifada against Western civilization.
Okay, this chapter, I miss my Aunt Jemima and Mr. Uncle and my Uncle Ben, and then I'm going to add on to it my Washington Redskins, because I lived in D.C. and went to college up there, and I will always be a Redskin fan. But this has been a slap in the face to them, to black people, because most black people want Aunt Jemima on the bottle and Uncle Ben on the box. So they even take out their own things.
Well, look, and who did that? It wasn't black people. Another example of liberal whitey, removing black people again from the public square. Okay? That's what happened there. And don't blame Trump supporters for it.
Right.
And the reality, families of the former mascots of the state, I think even Mrs. Buttersworth too. I mean, they.
Yes. So
look,
sad.
I got to tell you this. As an Irish Catholic from Philadelphia, I am outraged by the Boston Six mascot. I am outraged by the Notre Dame Fighting Irish's mascot. Absolutely need the Lucky Charms leprechaun removed. Okay.
Okay. Well, you have a chapter, because America's so impacted by fentanyl, and it's called Meet the Patron Saint of Fentanyl. So that's you want to talk about that? Because I've even know somebody that I worked with a Air Force major that ended up dying of fentanyl. So everybody's impacted by that awful word with our open border.
Sure. Well, look, I mean, that already covered George Floyd. I mean, that section's about Floyd and what they found, what the toxicology report found in his body, which is why, when the scumbag cop was kneeling on him, he didn't last very long. And like I said before, two things can be right at the same time. I mean, when I talk about this all the time with all of our conservative friends, that you can think Zelensky, when it comes to the Ukraine war, for example, you can say Zelensky is a grifter and also think Putin kind of sucks, right? You can do two things at the same time. You don't have to put on a Vladimir Putin basketball jersey or a Zelensky basketball, you can say, hey, both these sides are terrible. These guys are grifters, and this guy is probably an evil genius who, throws some red meat in conservatives' direction sometimes by being against, wokeness and some of these others. Oh, he's fighting for the Eastern Orthodox Church. He's fighting for civilization. And I mean, Putin knows how to manipulate us. He's ex-KGB. So, you can be intellectually honest with yourself when you're staring at these situations, and deal with it. It's like the Arabs and the Persians, Saudi Arabia and Iran. They do not like each other. I always love the funny quote from Sarah Palin, who said, "Why don't we just let Allah sort it out? We don't need to. We don't need to get involved. Let Allah sort it out."
What I learned also from your book was, because Trump never gets credit, and you talk about him coming together with Ice Cube, and then he tried to help ASAP when ASAP was thrown in Swedish jail. So I mean, he has fought for the black man. And people don't ever want to talk about that. I love those stories.
Well, wait a minute. There's a funny story nugget in there. We were talking about Abraham Lincoln earlier. Hundreds of thousands of Americans died in the Civil War. Lincoln takes a bullet. Trump took a bullet.
Yeah.
Thank God they missed. Of all the presidents we've ever had, I have never in my life seen what Trump did with A$AP Rocky. So A$AP Rocky's this rapper who gets picked up in Sweden. He gets put in the pokey in Sweden. He's probably not an absolute gentleman himself. Okay, so I'm not telling everyone to go out and act like it. But he ends up in prison. I guess Trump gets some phone calls from Kanye and maybe Lamar, Kendrick Lamar. He got phone calls that this had happened. So it makes the news that Sweden is holding an African-American rapper in prison, hostage. And I've never seen a president who's been called a racist, and certainly the first black president never did this. I have never seen anyone do what Trump did. Trump threatened a trade war with Sweden. Okay? Sweden's not exactly a danger to us. They since the Vikings moved to Minnesota and started losing Super Bowls, and he on behalf of a rapper, a gangster rapper,
didn't he
a
offer
black
the
male,
bail you said in there to vouch for him? And I'm like, no, I've never heard.
But he was
going to
start he was going a trade war with a Western European country on behalf of a rapper.
Yeah.
It's never been done. He never gets credit for anything.
No, he doesn't.
And that's why in the book but this is why in the book I call him our first hip hop president.
Yeah. No, it was excellent story. Oh my goodness, I love the book. Okay, one more chapter here. Elon Musk, African American of the Year, because I am in love with Elon Musk. I bought my check mark a couple months ago, and I've been on almost 6 million feeds. It's like the biggest platform for me to get my voice out there. And the man, I find him to be a founding father of free speech, and now they hate him. The left, they hate him.
Well, look, I mean, he's African American, like you're Hispanic, and the left hates it. He is from South Africa, which is in the continent of Africa.
Yes.
And he became an American citizen. So de facto, he is an African American. Okay. Obviously, I'm having a little fun there. I'm a wise ass in Philadelphia, but the reality is that if Trump pulls off this election, and Kamala can go out there and say that the Cheney family loves me, vote for me, all she wants.
That was
because who would you rather roll with? Elon Musk, RFK Jr., and Tulsi Gabbard, 3 Democrats that Trump has flipped.
Yeah.
Some of them big ones, Democrat royalty. Elon Musk got red pill, right? Tulsi Gabbard was a Democrat presidential candidate. He flipped these 3. So if you want to go to war to fight the cultural Marxists, you want to roll out on Election Day, and Kamala's waving around Mitt Romney people and John McCain people and Dick Cheney, or do you want to roll with Elon and RFK Jr.?
Everybody I know wants to roll with Elon. I'm telling you, even in the ugly, what is the truck one that's so not attractive that I see driving around my town? You know, everybody wants to roll with Elon. So have you had any pushback already? I know the book drops next Tuesday. You're talking to all the media. You know, this is a subject, especially you're a white guy, AJ. Do you foresee any pushback? I mean, I love it because the stories are true. I didn't know these stories. And, you know, white people do like black people. We're not racist. So do you foresee any pushback?
They might try to come at me a little bit, but I mean, I'm from Philadelphia. I grew up on the playground playing ball.
Tough.
I used to think I was Allen Iverson. So I'm more than ready and more than readily equipped. If some of the pumpkin spice mafia, if they get off their Pelotons with no seat and they want to come at me, I'm more than happy to take whatever incoming comes because I'll back it up all day long. Okay, I'll put on my Wu-Tang Clan T-shirt, and we can have we can mix it up a little bit. Believe me.
Oh my goodness.
I doubt it. I mean, we'll see. And if it is, it's just going to be a bunch of anonymous keyboard warriors, right? Which we can handle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I've learned how to take all kinds of insults on X, which I've never received before. And then they message you them. Well, I love the book. And how did you end up? You're the first author. I've had so many on in the hundreds of people I've interviewed now that has a song that goes along with it. And it's the coolest song.
Sure. I mean, look, I do my books the way people do albums. I mean, The Woking Dead was kind of like Michael Jackson's Thriller. I even put the opening monologue from Vincent Price on the front of the book. You know, when you open right inside the front first couple pages. Look, so the White Privilege album, with an apology to the Beatles. You know, there's been other books called the White Album. But there's been books called the White Album. Obviously, the Beatles. You know, double LP. The nickname of it was called the White Album, even though it was not called that. It was just called The Beatles. You know, if you look at the cover of the book, it looks a little bit like Pink Floyd's The Wall album. I'm having fun, you know. I mean, I like thematic things. Put a fake parental advisor on.
It's so good. So who do you think... I mean, I've got to ask you this because you're a political player. Do you think we're going to win it in November? I'm like biting my nails every day. I've never.
Yeah, no, we're going to win it for a third time. No, we're going to win it for a third. You know, I think Trump just has to be Trump, and because independents, African Americans, Hispanics, all different types of groups are moving in his direction. They do not trust her. She is an empty suit. She belongs managing some kitchen on a block somewhere. Okay, she does not belong. The woman that got no votes in the White House. All right. So I mean, she is slowly. I mean, I call Hillary the most unlikable woman in history. I think we've got a challenge to that throne.
So true. And do you, I mean, because I think all of those groups you mentioned, we've all had enough, and especially when it comes to the economy and, you know, and bacon's $10 and then all of these illegals that I don't know who you are hurting Americans. I can't take it anymore. And especially if you have loved ones living in major cities like I do, I worry about their safety. So I think Americans have had enough. AJ, do you feel that way?
Well, let me ask this. Let me ask the audience this. Is Kamala Harris wife material? Do you want to be married to this woman for the next 4 years, America?
My gosh.
I want everyone listening. Do you want to listen to this voice for the next 5 years? I mean, the reason America's never had a female president is the fact of the matter is she's not a lesbian, okay? America is not a lesbian. We've never had a female president. It's not going to happen here, I don't think. The idea that this woman can get more votes than Hillary Clinton, I think, is a canard, okay? Because Hillary, I believe, and Hillary still lost. So I don't think when you come home from work every night, you're going to Kamala Harris. I could be wrong, but, you know, Joe took her off the trash heap because She was out of the race in 2019. She didn't even make it to the caucuses, remember? And now she's going to be the accidental president? Spare me.
Well, Hillary looks more attractive than than Kamala. And then what about Waltz? I find him even more radical, and the thought of him one heartbeat away from the white, being the president, if something were to happen to her, I can't even handle that because I'm such a pro-lifer, stripping children from their parents if they want to be transgender. I can't even, he pushes me. And then, of course, as a military woman, his stolen valor crap, I can't even look at this man. And plus he comes out looking like Richard Simmons every time. And who's going to take these people's, who's going to take him serious is my question.
Well, you can't.
Are you more frightened with him being number 2 like I am?
Sure. I mean, look, he's a Bernie Sanders type guy, Tampon Tim. I mean, this is somebody that any human being that wants to go on their honeymoon to Soviet, to communist countries, they should have their brain examined. They should not even be dog catcher in Iowa. They shouldn't be. They should go do something else. I mean, look, Kamala Harris said she worked at McDonald's, and Walt said he was in Afghanistan. They both spent the same amount of time in both places, it looks like.
Well, what are we missing, AJ? Okay, so you think we're going to win it. That makes me feel good because you're rubbing elbows with all of these important people that are in the know. And what are we missing? We need everybody to go get the White Privilege album. It drops on Tuesday. It is a phenomenal book. I love it. All your books are fun because you can read, a snippet and it's fabulous. Plus all the history I learned reading this book. What else are we missing?
It's something that I tell all my clients. I'm not, when I do these books, I'm not here to be a stuffy, lecturer. There's plenty of people out there for me that can get into that. I mean, I am a cultural animal. I do believe that we have to play on that turf because that is the way that the left sort of captures the youth. So if you ask why I do a rap song or why I sort of frame these books in certain ways, I mean, that's the real reason. Look, this is an entertainment medium. I tell all my clients when they go do interviews, I said, listen, I'm doing an interview, a performance. Think of it like a performance, okay? Which is why, you don't hear much policy in these presidential debates. Trump knows that. The one we all remember from this debate between Kamala and Trump is when he stopped, looked at the camera and said, you people at home may not know this, but Joe Biden hates this woman. He hates her.
That was true.
Okay? He hates her. She couldn't believe he said it. I'm going to tell you something right now. That regular people know. They took the presidency from this man.
Yeah.
Okay? I would have never done what Joe did. I think he should have stayed and lost honorably. They took it from him. It was a coup. This woman did not get any votes in the primary. Okay? She's an afterthought. She can't keep her staff. She found her husband on layaway 2 weeks ago. There's obviously a likability problem with her.
Yes.
Right? So she went out there and did her best to cheese in front of the camera, but the American people are going to have to ask themselves, do they want to be married to this woman for 4 years? And I would bet my life that the answer is no.
No, I don't think so. So I was going to ask you, where were you when the assassination attempt happened, and what were you thinking? Because I was headed to a party that night with several hundred people, and people.
I was actually I was cleaning up, the kitchen post dinner, and my phone started blowing up, and in the beginning it was just that Trump had been shot. It was
right,
no deep
exactly.
So obviously I stopped everything I'm doing and I ran towards the TV. And then my phone started blowing up, and the rest is history. It's amazing though how quickly the media made that all sort of vanish.
Well, it did, but I will say that
we're still hearing about the very fine people, but the Trump assassination never happened.
Well, but I will say that night, because, I was listening to his rally, getting ready for the party, ran like you did to find the TV, and I screamed, Trump's been shot. And that night at the party, people that weren't voting, that changed them that night. Yep. They're like, it woke them up. So do you think that the assassination has woken some of our, kind of sleeper voters out there?
100%. I mean, there's a group of people that decided on that day they're voting for him, and they're not going to be swayed by anything they're going to see.
Okay.
So, and that's why that giant independence number is so big,
right.
And it's breaking towards Trump.
Right.
And RFK Jr. helps with that. The endorsement helps with that, and RFK talking about his uncle, talking about his father being shot. This is a real thing. I mean, the left has thrown everything at this man, including bullets.
Oh, my gosh. Yes, they have. I call him Saint Trump, AJ, because who would endure this? If I had billions in the bank account, I would be on my luxury yacht off of Greece or something. I don't know. So that's why I know he's fighting for America and Americans.
He is. He doesn't need to be doing any of this, they're just trying to get to us. He's just the bouncer out front of the building.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, they are trying to get to us. They don't like the movement. They don't like the fact that, his policies are being adopted writ large by the Republican Party. They like a compliant tapioca pudding type Republican Party, right? They like heroes that were captured. And they like, Mitt Romney in his magical underwear.
Ugh.
That's what they like.
But we can't push the SAVE Act out the door. And I'm like, shut the freaking government down. I want to know that you're an American when it comes to voting. And then I'm sure you saw the story.
Trump did a spinal transplant to a lot of the Republican Party, and it needed it. So that's why they're after him. That's why you've got 2 phony impeachments and 4 phony indictments, because of all of us and everyone listening here, because he's in the way of them getting to us.
Well, it's been such a pleasure. We've had A.J. White. I've got his song to lead us out here. Drops Tuesday, the White Privilege album. A.J. Rice, thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
I love you, girl.
Okay.
Keep fighting, all right? We love your audience. You guys are patriots.
Take care, and thanks for joining Veronica Live.